Okay, so we have really lovely topic of puffins. Well, Puffin Island actually, but puffins, obviously we've got some landscapes you can do that are just kind of areas of the country, like we've got the Puffin Island in Wales near Anglesey, and then there's Puffin Island. This one I believe is taken up at the Farne Isles in Northumberland. And there's several actually. When you start to look, I was like, oh wow, I didn't realise there were so many Puffin Islands. So anyway, so we can do a puffin close up or a puffin further away or very tiny puffins, which we've had this morning as well. So they're all really, really, obviously really lovely. I thought I would go to demonstrate a bigger puffin with the whole of the feet in, just because I think sometimes people do find getting the feet in a little bit tricky and the proportions. So this one's a great one to demonstrate that for. But of course you can alter any of the colours in here, go with what you really like most. I'm just moving that across, there we go. So if you mix in a blue and you prefer your blue, then by all means do that. That is great. I'm just popping this on here. So in terms of, I am going to grid this, really because it is much easier when there's a lot of kind of proportions to think about. So I suppose really should use a ruler, however. I'm just lifting this bit of paper up. If you struggle to see exactly down the middle, I always have. It's not like something new, it's always like that. Just fold it in half like that, and that's quite helpful. That helps a little bit. And then the other way as well. This is where I will struggle a little bit because I'm not sure if that's safe. I'll do the same again. Hold it that way. There we go. And then we've got, we've got this like nice little grid system going on, which just helps us to work out where, say a chest goes or the bottom part of the bird. And the more practice we have with it anyway, the more we get used to it. So I'm just going to do the same on this big bit. I'm not going to fold this paper in, so if it ends up a little bit just further over, then so be it. Now, when you're doing, any lines or anything onto your paper, just make sure that it's really nice and light. And I know I always say it, but I just make this nice and dark for the benefit of being able to see it on the camera. Otherwise, the lines are a bit too faint. So yeah, so quite often we do the background, don't we, before we put something on. But because it's a fairly big block, we can put the bird in. It's absolutely fine. We can put the puffin in. They've got the most fabulous shape, haven't they? So I tend to go, I am going to start with this head here. Got wonderfully shaped head. So obviously, we're looking at whereabouts it starts. If you really want to be accurate, you can, think, okay, it's about 3/4 of the way up the page. Get this line. And then again, if you're not sure how far out that you want the back to come to, because we kind of want to go over and sweep over, keep some kind of a line going, then, again, we can use the quarters to work out whereabouts it meets. It's just kind of a bit further over from halfway, isn't it? I won't even say it's 2/3, it's not quite that far, but it just gives us an idea of where to connect the dots to in a way. And then again, you can even put one on if you want, where the back of where the neck is. So I'm doing lots of lines there, but I'm kind of looking at where it changes the shape. So that probably is just over 1/3 of the way. So I'm kind of like just making a little mark here. So it just helps then kind of getting that into place. So I'm going to bring, obviously with all the heads in here, so I'm going to bring the head over. The head goes up a little bit, doesn't it? And again, these lines we can shift and change when we're actually putting the bird in properly. And we'll probably bring some of the background into the bird because we do often end up shifting things a little bit, which is fine. And that's, you know, a good way of doing it so we're not getting too caught up on making errors and things. And then obviously this is coming down. We want this, you know, to come over. And now I know that to put the wing there. That's why that's quite helpful, just popping in an extra little mark there. I'm going to finish by coming over the face. And so again, you can check little angles. Don't need any fancy equipment at all. You know, we can just go, okay, look, from the top of the head, how is that going? And then just transfer it over. And so I know it's going in this general direction where it's square. It's a little bit squared off at the top and then it starts to curve, doesn't it? So that's what we're looking for there. And again, we're just kind of putting a general out because we will, once we go and focus on each of these areas in detail, we will shift and change some of those things. So there we go. Put this beak in and then just literally just head is just the other side, isn't it? So again, we can kind of look at, while I'm doing that, I might as well just pop in a little bit of the shape of this white part. So it's almost like a leaf shape. Can you see? So you've got like, you know, at this end here where it joins, it's almost like a leaf there and a leaf there. If we actually want to kind of analyze it, which is really quite nice. Just as a start. So we've got that on, and then I'm just going to pop whereabouts we've only got a little bit of the puffin's face in there before we get the beak in, and then there's this lovely coloured area of the bill here, which is a bit red and a bit of a dark colour down there going down. So we'll pop that in. So we're already kind of getting quite underway. I mean, I've gone into a little bit more detail than I was planning, but seeing as we're in this area, we'll just get this. So this is really interesting. This particular, the eyes are really interesting on puffins because they are quite large and they're almost a bit triangular in places. And when you look at the different views as well, but they've got such gorgeous big eyes, haven't they? They're really cute. So again, it's quite near to the eye, quite near to this line here. So I'm not going to get too bogged down with it, but I'm going to try and pop in this, you know, curved, both of those eyes are curved here, and then the line goes up and then back down towards that leaf shape. It's almost like the vein of a leaf, isn't it? And we can fill in the other details later on. And then again, we're looking at this here and how the chest comes out, and the chest's obviously on a really quite fluffy, aren't they, and quite rounded. So I'm going to take it just past this line a bit. And they are, you know, they are a really lovely rounded bird. So then really we're quite, you know, we're getting quite a lot of the detail in there, aren't we? You may end up shifting things up or down just a little bit, and that's fine when we come to doing it, when we've done the background in. They're just the most friendly looking animals. So it depends on which way you want to come around. You can come from both ways if you want to. I'm going to come this way and that way, and then we'll be there. So what I am going to do is look at whereabouts this tummy comes to, and that is just over, a bit over a third, isn't it, there, I would say. And again, don't worry, it's not our final mark, but I'm just going to bring that in. And again, if you're not sure of the angle, just check the angle and then you'll know if you're on the right lines or not. So it does kind of swoop round, a little bit square there, and then in underneath it comes, doesn't it? But yeah, we do have this kind of square feel on here a little bit, angular, should I say, not square. There we go. And then again, you know, if you want to put in whereabouts this foot comes down to, things like that, that's quite helpful. So I've just got the flat of the foot. So again, that's just over, is it under or over halfway? I can't, it's almost halfway, isn't it? Maybe just under halfway here. I'm going to put mine. So that's the top of the foot. And just, I'm not going to put in too much detail, just kind of a flat foot here. It goes back, doesn't it? And then it kind of, this just comes into where we've gone with the, it's a little bit of an angle on the leg there. And then we have this area, we've got a little bit that goes in a little bit up here, but then we have the foot, sorry, the back leg coming down a little bit further. And again, you know, if we're not sure how far to bring this down, you can always just go to where you think it is. And then we're looking at bringing the leg down. We can sort the shapes and everything out. And it kind of curls around, doesn't it? So it's almost near to the other one. And again, if you're not sure, look at the angle like there of the feet. So, you know, I'm just putting a little mark where I want to bring that round. So it's kind of coming round. We've got a bit of a nice, interesting shape there, and it's quite flat at the bottom. So we will sort out again, you know, as we're going. So then, you know, we're just a little looking at, you know, is this working? Is it in the right place? We can change things if we want to a little bit. But again, we can do that later on. The thing is not spending too long kind of drawing it. Just get a good shape on, and then we'll come back because we will shift things. So again, I'm looking at how far out these feathers come. So halfway. So again, that way, it's about, that first one comes about 3/4 of the way out. So probably about there on mine. So again, you know, we're just looking at the shape of the leaves of the feathers. Don't know where the leaves come from, I think from the bill. There we go. And then got another feather, which is a part of that tail feather, isn't it? Coming down here. That comes out a little bit further. So it's quite flat. And then we can look at like that kind of how it blends in there. And then we've got one more. So if we're not sure, so these are all these two are in a line down. It's going to be in line with that, but comes a bit further down. So if you're not sure about how far down to bring it, just look at the angle and that'll give you an idea. So probably to about here. We've just checked the angle. So it's a combination of the shape, the angle, and how far out it comes really. And it just gets easier and easier to work out these, you know, the more we do it really. And then we've got all this coming underneath the bird as well. So all of the underside. And then a different patch there. That's all I'm going to pop in for now. The only other thing I might just pop in is like where we get this kind of colour change from dark feathers to light feathers. And I'm just making it wiggly there because I'll need to change that as we go anyway. And then how it kind of patches up like this. And that's that. And so then the rest of it is fairly straightforward, isn't it? Because it's just looking at how this grass comes up. It comes all the way across this side. It's like a bit of a mound, isn't it? You see how high it comes up here. And then we've got this nice curve over half, like to about the halfway mark here. But if you want to make anything longer or shorter, then by all means do that. I'm just going to pop it in there because obviously we'll change this anyway by adding some texture and some grasses and things like that. I'm not even going to draw the flowers on because we'll just end up, they need to go on last over the top really. So at least we've got a bit of a start. Now, if you want to kind of get rid of your line, if you've drawn those on, then just get rid of those. I'm not worrying about little bits, rubbing little bits out because I'm going to go in with my paint anyway. There we go. So yeah, I mean, I've just kept rid of them just because mine's very heavy. The lines on here are really quite harsh. So I'm giving myself a chance really with the paints. Oh, there's a funny now that is funny because I've now got the sun out, which is just a bit and I've now got a shadow on there. That's the first time that that has happened. So we're definitely coming into spring. So I'm just going to see, it's almost going down, but we'll carry on. Once I start to mix the colour, if it hasn't gone down, I'm going to just shift my desk slightly so it doesn't cause a problem. There we go, that's better. But yes, that's definitely spring and summer are absolutely on their way because that's not happened yet. Okay. So once you've got, you know, a general idea in there, what we want is, you know, to get our sky colour mixed up. Now, if you're doing something that's got a few colours in it, as long as they're not like opposite colours, like warm and cool colours, like if you've got yellows and blues, we don't want to kind of really mix those in together because, as we've said before, it will create a green sky or something like that. But if they're a similar colour spectrum, you've got lots of blues, you can go in with one colour or you can go in with a couple, you know, and vary it with some lighter colours in. If you're going to do that, then that's when we need some colours mixed up all at the same time, excuse me, because if you want to get the blend on them while it's still wet, we'll need to do that. So put some white. I'm going to pop a little bit. So you could use all sorts of blues here. You could use a phthalo blue, which is the darker one. Prussian blue, you may have or ultramarine, which is a different colour altogether. I've got some turquoise, but you could use cerulean blue. That gives it like kind of more of a turquoisey feel. So just have a little bit of an experiment with what you've got there. See if you can come to what you want to do. I'm just looking at whether that's going to cause a problem with mixing. I've waited all day for that sun to come out and it's come out now. I don't want it out because it's casting a shadow on the table. Right, just bear with me. You might judder a little bit. Ah, that's a bit better. Just keep moving backwards. It could be with a box in a minute. Okay, oh, there we go. I'm happy now. So I'm just going to make that brighter. 1, 2, 3. Is it 4? No, so only 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, crikey. 1, 2. There we are. Right, so that should be okay now. So I have got the daylight studio lights on as well. So just gonna get my little palette knife. Feel free to get to me to clean it off with. I mean, I don't mind anyway too much because when we're working in, say, blue hues, just move my palette up. When we're working in blue hues, it doesn't matter too much if we put a colour too near another one because obviously they're all similar cool tones. Add a little bit of that blue in with this one. It's really going for a colour that you just really like. And then when you've tested your colours and you feel ready, oh yeah, I quite like that today. I might just add a very tingy bit more with the warm one, but cerulean will do a similar job. I've just put ultramarine in mine as well, just because I do quite like that one today. It's a bit of that kind of baby blue we were talking about before. I'm going to mix up a bit more because I need some to colour my background quite well. I'm also going to mix up a slightly lighter one as well, and just to put another little bit in, just for some contrast. So I'm just going to take a bit more white out there. make it all get plenty ready. I think I'm going to have to mix a little bit more up here. Actually, might not have quite enough to go with. Okay, there we go. I'll just pop a little bit of water in there. Now, if you want to go in, obviously you can go in with a nice flat brush if you want to. Depends whether you want any lines or you want a nice smooth background. You tend to get a more smooth background with a flat brush or a kind of a moppy one as well. So go whatever. I'm just going to. The main thing about it is if you keep it moving, a bit more water in there actually. Keep the water moving. Sorry, the paint moving. That's the key to it really. And it depends on your temperature. It was quite warm today where we were in the hall. So it was drying really fast. So if you've got to kind of keep it moving in that situation, or it will, you are going to get a few lines and things. And if you don't like that, it's just been away. I see. I think the sun's been on the studio today, and that's why it's warmer in here, even though there's no heating on. I'm just moving that paint around. Actually, you can even do that. Just add a tiny bit of water to the paint you've got on there. If you're finding it's too thick or whatever, just keep it moving. And it's really nice to move that water. So I'm going a little bit into the bird as well. I'm not worrying about that too much. As I'm going down, I'm making my paint a little bit lighter. So I'm adding in this lighter coloured one here that I had, which had a bit more white in it. So I'll get rid of those joins in a moment. So, and really, so it's here. It's only because I'm pulling the paint into it, keeping it moving, not letting it stop moving at this point. Bringing this lighter one in. So I'm quite happy to go into the feathers here so that I get a nice blend. Don't worry about that because of course we can go over it at any point. We can add more paint if we're not getting the effect we want over the top, but it will reach capacity at some point and we might not be able to, add a lot more in. We might have to wait for it to dry. So mine's significantly lighter than that background, but I just really liked that. So I can always darken it down, look. So if I wanted to add a little bit in the corner, and again, I'm just using that brush to really manipulate the paint around and get like a really nice kind of halo effect around the bird as well. We were doing that today. So just move it. Plenty of paint on your brush and moving it around kind of helps. You can bring all sorts of colours into it, just for a bit of atmosphere. Now you can end up with all the texture and lines on it as well if that's your fave. Don't have to make it smooth. See what you like. It's one of those things, isn't it? More we experiment, think, oh, I do like texture, or I don't like texture, or I like a bit of texture, but not too much. And sometimes that changes over time as well. We might at some point when we on our art journey not like it, and then we think, oh, actually, I quite like that now. So we always keep an open mind about it and see how things are changing and what we like. So again, I'm bringing this right into this grass stump here. I've got a few directional marks on here just because I like that effect of it being a bit swirly. And then, you know, we can paint some of these like little grassy bits over the top of it. There we go. So just keep looking. Is there anywhere you want to add a little bit of, you can bring a bit of mistiness over it as well. You can by water, when it's dry, you can water down a bit of the white and bring that over. I'm just bringing a bit of white in that middle bit there, that section. Feels like it needs some. But again, just, just to see what you fancy, have a little play. There you go. So I'm going to then work on the puffin. And I'm actually just using one pot for my darker colours and one pot for my lighter colours at the moment. So I can keep that. Not having to keep changing my water all the time. I'm just cleaning off my palette knife with a bit of tissue before we need to wipe it off. Now then, one of the things I do think is with the puffin is it's really fascinating once we start looking, particularly, and it's a fantastic way to see it, that when we've got white feathers, we're not going to be able to see the direction of the white feathers if they're just white. And if we've got black feathers, we're not going to be able to see just the black feathers, direction of them, if we've just got black. So what we start to really focus on and observe and unpick is how many different tones can we see in the black. Now we can still put directional lines in for the feathers, which is really helpful when we're doing this. And I'm going to go in with the black actually first. But we can start to put directional lines, so we're halfway there. But then we can start to look and see what else can we see. So some people were saying, oh, it's kind of a browny tone, or it's a pinky tone, or purpley tone, or there's a sandy colour in this fur feathers. So we've got to really look and think about what colours do you want to mix up on your palette. So you can use paint grey if you don't want to go in with straight black. I might use that as a separate colour. But I am going to go in with black today because we have got black feathers, and then I'm going to work in some of the other tones that I can see as well. And obviously it's a very strong colour. Now this way round, I am just going to put some directional lines in this, and then I'm going to work in some of those other tones. Now, if you want to mix up the other tones first, you can, if you want to kind of get them a little bit blendy, or you can just put them over the top. It's really entirely up to you. Just depends on how you want to work. So if you do want to do that, I'm going to go in. I went in with a bit of a pinky colour this morning. I'm going to put a bit of purpley, a bit purple there. Now this one is it's got a slightly, this is a violet one, so it's not a really warm. It's got a slight warmth. It's not as cold, it's not as cool as some of them. Or you can just mix up a pinky colour, or use a straight pink. I've got pink, but you can just use a bit of red and a bit of white if you want. Just see, it depends on what you're seeing. That's the thing. We all see these things so differently. So all I'm going to do is just have these colours, and I might just mix up. I don't want a really dark purple in there, so I'm going to put a tiniest bit of white in that pile there. Oh, there you go. I quite like that with the white in it. Put a bit more in. Some people saw brown today, so if you want to go in with even a bit of a brown base, that's fine as well. Get nice and brown now. That's an alternative. Oops. Didn't come out very well this morning either. There we go. I may even add just a tiny bit of brown to that. It will be a bit muddy, but that's okay because I don't want a really bright, intense colour, and that's just sometimes takes out the pastel a bit of it. So that's what I've ended up with mixing those. I'm just going to do a little test with this purpley, see if it's what I like. Okay, I quite like that. And then again, so we're just working our way through the process of mixing and whatever we fancy. I'm looking at this pinky colour, and I'm going to put a bit of brown in there. Now, normally we'd say, oh no, I don't muddy the colours, but we can make it work if we just want a slightly warm tone of brown, which is what I'm after. I'm not after pink. So sometimes we can deliberately muddy our colours, if that makes sense, to get the tone that we want that we're after. So I've got a few colours there to play with. Just before we start, I'm just going to take a pause. Everybody get your colours together. Okay, so just having a little think as we're going through about these feathers. So we've mixed up a few different colours, haven't we? So again, depend on, you know, how thick your brush is. So you might want to go down to a smaller brush is all I meant actually. I'm going in straight in with the Mars Black, and then I'll just add some of these other lighter colours in as I go through. And I'm starting right with the tip of this one because it's quite a thick brush for the size of the paper. So I'll see, I might need to go down a side. We'll find out. I'm just kind of popping this on. So I am thinking about, even though I'm putting it on quite thickly, I am still thinking about, you know, the directional brush marks to try and get some in. Now, some of this will end up going over that's near the white feathers, but we can put it back in again. So I'm just thinking about really the direction this is going in, just from the picture. I'm going to have to go to a smaller brush, definitely, for the head. And this is what I was saying, when we were actually doing the head, we then start to really focus a lot more on the shape of the head. And we think, oh yeah, I didn't notice it was a bit that way. I'll just change this, which is absolutely fine. That's the adjusting bit that we're doing. You know, as we notice a little bit more. Bring that down a bit more. And then, you know, where we get these kind of bigger feathery marks, we can just kind of pop those in. Kind of comes over, feels like it's coming over, doesn't it? I'm just going in with some of these big, you know, direction of where these feathers are going on the wing and everything. Working on these ones, kind of just getting the direction of these as well. This one. Really quite enjoyable, getting really focusing on these, you know, where these feathers go, turn. And then, just have a little look at some of the other directions of some of the feathers underneath as well. You can't always see exactly what's happening with some of them, but we can just have a little go. And this is kind of getting the directions down there. I'll do that in a little bit more detail afterwards. So it's just, what do we do with what we've got? And it's really thinking about how we can use those other colours in there. So definitely, going in with some of these other colours that we've mixed up. It's lovely. And it's just, popping those on. I don't always see exactly what the shape is either. On the feathers, it's just sometimes where the light catches them. I'm going to put a little bit of blue in as well with this purple because it feels over here a little bit more of a bluey colour on this feather, so that's what I'm going in with. So you might, it can vary depending on when, if it's in the shadow as well. You sometimes get more of a blue tone than a warmer tone on these feathers. The dog's fur is very similar. I'm going to go in with these, which makes sense because it's a little bit more in the shadow over here. And then, yeah, over this side. And again, it maybe you can see some kind of lighter ones there. I think it might be a bit more yellow based or even orangey based or peachy based. You can just, go and have a try and see what colours you want to put in there. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of a. So again, we're pulling some of these shapes down. This one's a bit warmer then. I'm going in with a little bit of a touch of yellow actually in that bit there. And again, it would make sense that some of the fur reflected maybe is a bit warmer because it's the bit that's in the sun. And we can just keep working in some of the little patches and patchworks that we can see in there. Just kind of looking closely at what we can see in the picture. And then picking out any real little highlights that are in there as well. Might be some little highlights of things. Might not be lots, but just little bits of, there's like a little, oh, it's catching a light here. Just the odd bit that seems to be a bit brighter in there. And if it feels too harsh, you can just soften that down, look. Nothing has to stay really bright if we don't want it to be. And then what you can do as well is you can also build up the really dark ones. So if you think, oh, it's really dark in that area because I really want the shadow to come by, then darken that as well. And that's all we're doing. It's this process of observing what we can see and adding a bit more, which is quite exciting, isn't it, really, when you start to look and you really see all these fabulous colours that we hadn't noticed before. So I've just noticed I want to change the shape of the head a bit up here. It needs to be a bit more curved at the top. And pop in some of that light colour just there. And you would expect, you would expect to get little highlights where, where the colour catches anything that's sticking out really. And whether it's a bird or a dog or a human, we know on our faces it's nose and chin and eyebrows or sometimes parts of the eye that catch the light. So I'm going to do exactly the same here. I'm thinking about the opposite now, which is the white fur. And again, when we look at white fur, it's not white, So it's particularly obvious in the face here. So where you get that curvature of the face, and because it is quite a rounded face, isn't it, with a puffin, and it goes in, it starts to get that shadow around the side, and then it's more white in the middle. And then we've got other colours here. And then when you go into the body, we're looking at where the light's shining. It's a little bit warmer, isn't it? There's some kind of warmer colours through there. There might even be a bit of yellow, like the yellowy green or something under here. Just see what you can see. That's, that maybe it's reflecting off the grass or the feet of the bird. And then again here, I can still see purple bits in here, but we'll all be seeing that differently. So we can put all of those colours into it. So I'll probably start out with a bit of a tint, to be fair, with this. Make sure your brushes are really clean though, because that's the only downside of going from black to white. So make sure right in the crevices of your brushes, at the top, that's where it catches. All that. I've given it a really good rinse and we'll do it again. Just make sure it's out. So I'm going to get some of this white. I'm just going to put in a little bit of a tint in there. So some of it, I want a little bit of grey. So again, we're just looking at the colours in there. So I'm going to go in with a bit of a grey tint on the face. Sometimes it's easy just to tint all of it grey. Whatever colour you can see, by the way, it doesn't have to be grey. Because some of it is even darker underneath. I'm going to change that there. Almost a bit purple, so I might even put a bit of purple tint in there. Just test your colours though to make sure you're okay with it. And it is the colour that you want. So I'm actually going to go and put the whole of this bird face in with a tint. And again, you can start to make directional marks with your brush as well to kind of get the curve of the face and everything. So the reason I'm putting the whole of the face in as a tint is I'm just going to build up the lighter areas around it. I know there's a bit of a very light highlight, but we can put the highlights in as well in a bit. So it might look quite, dark to start with or whatever. But we're just building it. Yeah. I might use some of that to get that shape of the feathers in there. Ruffling it up a little bit. And then I'm going to go with a really small brush. We get the shape of the eye in. Normally I do that first, actually, I haven't today, have I? Got a bit distracted with all the lovely colours on there. So I'm going to go in with a dark black here. And just make, and they've got these two lovely, it's like a triangle, a curved triangle, isn't it? So again, don't worry too much about, we can adjust things as well if you're not happy really easily by going over it in paint. So I'm trying to follow the curve of that eye at the top there and then bring it round and then really get this line in here because it's quite a definite line. Yeah, getting that line in. Here we are. And then I'm just going to put the colour of the eye in as well. Sometimes it's quite nice, isn't it, to get the eye in, and then you've got it. So I'm going to go in with an orange in here. I'm just literally going in with a red. Whoops, Daisy. A red and a yellow mixed together. Then we paint the whole thing in. And then the pupil. And then sometimes, depending on what you can see, we've got a tiny bit of, just a tiny bit of white in there, like a little reflection at the top here. So we can start to get that kind of glass-like eye in, but it's not a big space actually, is it, this time? So what I'm going to go do here is just start to look at the really dark areas underneath there. And it kind of blends in a bit, and I'm going to soften that down because it's quite a harsh line now. Too hard. There. So you see we're building up the dark shadow and the lighter. And then we can build up the very light. So I'm going to go in with, these much lighter areas now with the feathers and can feather them on. We always want to finish off with the lightest so that we're you know, we get that lovely round shape. We're not flattening it down the other way. So again, we're just looking at where the highlights go, where it's brightest. And it just all brings that whole shape of the bird together. It's amazing how it does that. The different tones in there. And then there's a little bit of a highlight that goes around the outside, but it's not quite as intensely bright as this. So I'm going to go in with a little tint, just got this little bit of white, bit of that kind of greyish colour, but make it more light than dark. And then just bring that in where I can see that we've got this kind of line coming round a bit there as well. It's going up. A bit over the top there as well. So yeah, so so it's starting to take, you know, it starts to take a bit more shape, doesn't it? It's a bit darker under there, so I'm going to do that. And there we go. So we can do exactly the same down here. I mean, if you want to go on and finish the beak, that's absolutely fine. Because I've got the white, I'm going to continue on with these different shades that I can see here. But yeah, it's amazing how we can make that pop. And there's actually a little bit here that I've not put in. I'll just pop that in as well. So I'm not going to make it really bright, but I'm going to lighten it a bit so that there's almost the shape of the eyebrow in there. Just getting a bit of light on it. There we go. It's quite exciting, isn't it? I think this bit's really exciting. So again, you know, just looking at the different tones that we can see, I'm going to go in with a few different tones in here, probably a bit of a yellowish colour, so I'll put a bit more yellow on. So that's what I'm seeing, but you might be seeing green or yellow ochre. I'm just putting there to move it over. I don't want it really, really incredibly bright, so I might just tone it down with a little bit of this one that's got a bit of purple in it. And again, this is where we can tone things down to effect. So here, you might even think, oh, it's a bit warmer than that, it needs to be a bit reddy. Just go with what you think, really, or pink or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just as long as we're observing some of these changes. And like down here, it's quite dark, isn't it? Even though it's a light colour, it's not a really bright light colour. And I'm just dotting in some of the other shadows and patterns I can see under there. Now it's gone a bit too far down, but I'll just cover that over with the grass. This is the beauty, isn't it, of the beauty of the acrylics. And while it's blowing, it's really windy out there, I'll just happily just chilling with our art, which is lovely. So yeah, just keep building up, you know, see what other tones you can see. Might be you see something a bit that's a bit warmer. I've got a little bit of this interesting colouring going on, it's a bit brown. I'm going to pop that in there. I can see, and I'm just going to go over it anyway with the white, so I'm not worrying at all that it might be there's too much on there because I'll just soften everything down with the white over the top. But I am putting, oops, Daisy, now I've got that all over me. What's in here? Otherwise, I think that red is definitely going to end up all over my picture. Now, so yeah, so before I go over the white, I am trying to get the darker ones in as well because I can see already that my leg of the other puffin needs to be a bit further back, so I'm putting that there for when it is. Darker, so I'm not going in black with that, I'm going with this other colour. So you start to notice the shadows as well between legs and things like that, which is really interesting. I really like one there. Again, we're looking at what tones can we use if it's much of a much lighter. So I'm just mixing this colour here, which is just where it gets like this little hollow here. It's more shadowy, isn't it there? Okay, so I need to go in with the light now and build that up. Really the light is up on the body as well as the. So when we're looking, you know, this chest area does get a lot, doesn't it, of light. So and it comes around a bit more as well. A little bit flat then. So building up this featheriness, and you can go with a tiny brush if you want, or just keep the other one. I'm also bringing a bit of that white through the top where the feathers overlap there to make it feel a bit softer. And whatever's coming out, so if you're feeling like you want to just tap it or dot it on, then do that. Because that's your style coming through there. Obviously, we're trying to get the shape in and everything and think about the colours, but at the end of the day, that mark making is yours. Very important. It feels, you know, nice. And then we're looking at other areas. So it's quite a bit darker on down here. That goes in, but there are a few areas. And again, you can just make it slight. You don't have to be bright white. You can do put some slightly tinted areas on. And then again, just looking, aren't we, where we get these. The bits, and we're just building them up and building them up until we're happy with that we've got kind of a mixture of tones and things like that in there. And I think I'll take a little pause there, see how everyone's getting on. Okay, so we're just continuing to work our way around this beautiful puffing, getting all of those, you can go in with a smaller brush and really get the feathery effect in there, or you can go in with a bigger one. It's entirely up to you, really. It's your painting. So I'm just kind of popping, I'm just building up some of the really white areas so that I get that, feels like that chest is really getting highlighted up here. Before I go in with the other little bits and pieces. And I'm just going to soften down some of this that I've put on this colour because it's quite bright, quite a block. Yeah, it's lovely when you see that, when you're just following patterns in nature. It's really fabulous. Okay. All right, so we've got these lovely, I would be inclined to put obviously the beacon and everything, and then the feet today, because then we can get these grasses going up over the feet as well. So the beak is very interesting. So is some of the markings on the face, because on the face we have some orange and then some, we mix up a bit of orange just with red and yellow, because I haven't got that. So it will depend on the orange and the red that you've got, so as to what kind of orange you'll come out with. Some are more peachy and some are more, kind of quite a bit more dull. So you're just going to have, it's just a bit of trial and error really, as to how much yellow you put in as well. But say you're using like a red like alizarin crimson, which is really more purple based, it'll give you a very different colour. And the best thing is just to experiment with them, just have a mix of them and see what colours you get, because then you'll kind of make a note, because you've mixed it and tested them, you'll make a note and then think next time, oh, actually that'd be a really good colour for such and such. Kind of sticks with you a bit more because you've mixed them. I'm just getting this bit of marking on the actual face here, and then some of this kind of stripy fur, feathers. I must have said fur about 100 times today. So I would tend to go in with a dark colour, and then I go over the top with the yellow or whatever it is I'm putting on. Now this is an interesting one because this beak is very light on one side, on the black area, and much darker. That's because one area is in the shadow and one area is actually catching the light. So we can help with that feeling of shape and the curve by doing the same. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a purpley black on the top part, purpley grey black. And we can create that shape. Make it even lighter as we go around the top if we want to, so you can kind of almost get an extra, you know, dimension to it. There we go. And then I'm going to go over with that lighter bit, which is a bit more yellow, isn't it? I'm going to get this orange bit in first. So when we're looking at these colours, it's fascinating because, again, they change, don't they? Depending on, you know, the position and everything of the beak. So the best thing is to just get something down, one colour down, and then we can adjust it by adding things or and again, you know, when we start to look in detail, we'll see that there's some little highlighty areas on there. So if some that are a bit more highlighted, then pop them in. Might be some patterns on there. And then I'm just going to go in and get this it's quite a light yellow colour, that's what I'm seeing anyway. Lemony yellow. Or even a kind of Naples yellow colour. So I'm going to try and pop that on over the top. And that is just the same as, you know, you're just toning the yellow down with a bit of white. With Naples yellow. It's not got too much intensity to it, basically. I'm finding this quite a challenge just because I've got such a tiny bit of paper. And then again, you know, on the top there, it's almost a bit of a, you know, it's looking even on these little bits. Can you see any highlights? Which I actually can on the top, right on the top of here. There are a few highlights I could do with a thinner brush actually. There we go. Just where it's shiny on the top. I'm going to actually take some of that back off. It's a little bit too much on it. Scrape it back off with the edge of your brush when it's still wet. Or your nail, whichever works. There we go. So yes, we're just looking at all those little. So then we start to really see the shape of the puffin's face now, which is exciting, isn't it? And I'm going to join. I am going to join under here because we do tend to get a shadow underneath, which helps to see that. There we are. And then at the feet again, so there's all sorts of shades on here, so it's just deciding, what shades can you see? What shade are you going to go in with? I think going to go in with an orangey colour and then put the light ones, like the highlights on again. I'm just mixing up this red and yellow. Quite intense at the minute. Just take it over there. More yellow to it. So I'm going to go in. It's going to, again, it will look quite flat to start with when it's all one dark colour, but we can work in the other colours between it, so not to worry about that at all. And same with, getting the other leg in. And this is a good opportunity to move this, move the shape of legs and things if they're not quite as you want them or you didn't quite get the position where you thought it was, which is, as I said, quite normal because we're not really focusing on each individual part when we do it. And then just going in with those other shades. So, I'm going to put any shadows I can see in before I go on the light colour. So I can see a bit down the back of here I'd like to pop in. And a little bit down this leg as well. Quite shady in places, that one. And then we can go in with any other brights. So just go in with, I need a bit of the other one there. What we need is a contrast so we can see. So I'm just going to go in the really bright lemony yellow. And again, down towards, so it's quite a smaller brush. You can keep all this quite loose though, much looser. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be really, if you like to use a looser style, you can go in much looser. And just put a kind of a suggestion there. So at the top of the foot there, and then a little bit of, I'm just kind of putting a suggestion. There's a bit of brightness there. And that's it. That's all I'm doing for the moment to that. I might just actually put some shape, to be fair, put some shape back in that flip. Well, it's not flipper, is it? But it's in where the web is. You can always do that as well if you've put too much of one colour and just kind of put it back. I'm just going to stop there though for the moment. Because the grass is going to cover it. So I'm just going to see what, sometimes we need minimal detail on the feet. Okay, so the final bit really will be, this lovely grassed area, and so you can use all sorts of manner of tools and things to do that. So you can actually create the shape of the grass as you go. You can use an old bristly brush to kind of work those things over the top. I had that this morning. See if I can fish it out. Or you can just use, a nice flat brush. So I'm just going to have a few tones. Again, we just need a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to put some brown in here because that does feel quite earthy in places. But again, you know, use only what you want. If you don't want too much dark shadow in there, don't put it in. Keep it nice and light. There we go. I'm really struggling to get this out. I think it's obviously dried somewhere inside. I was struggling with this morning as well. There we go. I can get, oh, it's coming out now finally. There's obviously just a bit that's got stuck in. That's right. There we go. Right, that's better. Oh no. Right, get that paint off, that red paint. That's red paint today is getting everywhere. So I've got some brown. I'll keep that separate to my green, just for like these earthy areas. And then I'm going to use a contrast of a couple of greens because otherwise we won't be able to see it. It's the same as the feathers. We won't be able to see it if it's all one colour. So I'm going to go in with an ordinary sap green because we all need somewhere. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got something to start with. And then I'm going to go in with some nice brights. I'm going to go in, put some yellow next to it so I can make some of it brighter yellowy. And then I'll go in with some really bright highlights on the top. So you can go in with like tiny strands. I'm going to go in with a I'm going to go in with a black brush and create kind of a directional can get quite a nice if your your brush has got uneven, we can use the side even of it, like the edge of it to get these like little. But anyway, it's just a start really to get things down. It feels a bit brushy. We use a fan brush over the top with some other colours. A little bit of light under there because there is on the actual picture as well. Now obviously we could have painted the grass underneath it to start with around the feet. But I'm not worried too much about that because it does overlap the feet anyway, does the grass. Which you'd expect, wouldn't you? So, you can bring that up and over on the feet. That's what I said, quite more than often, but can't really see the feet anyway because there's a lot going on. So it's a bit more squashed down, isn't it? You can tell it's like obviously like being well trodden a little bit, well trodden where the puffins like to sit because it's all a bit squashed here. So you can just kind of create that, just enjoy using a load of mark making to kind of get a feel for what that looks like and represent it in your own way, which is the wonder of it, isn't it? There we go. Just building that up. I'll put some dark brown in over this side because it does feel quite earthy here. And I'm going to soften that down anyway. This bit is quite earthy. Underneath, you get a little bit of a shadow under there. So I'm just going to take a bit of brown and mix it with that green. So I don't want a really sharp contrast. Or you could do it with blue. That's the other thing. And then just get just a little bit underneath where you can use this edge of your brush if you want, just to get a sense that we have got some shadow where the bird is here. You can adjust that as well to the contrast that you like. As I say, just experiment with the edge of your brush. You can use an old bristly brush that's without any water on it and just kind of, um, move the brush about. So I'm just kind of popping in a few little, just a few little shadowy bits in there so that we can see that it's a bit of a lumpy bumpy bit of grass. It's not just moss. And then soften down and soften down this bit at the front here. Get some brushes going over it. Doesn't go too harsh. So then it's just thinking, what else do you want to put in there, really? Do you want some really bright pops of grasses so it's more textured, or do you want it less textured? Don't really know the answer till you get going. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't like a lot of texture. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Now, I do on mine. So I'm going to pop it in. And I'm going to think about some of the colours. So I'm using a thinner brush, and this is a bristly brush actually. It's not quite hard. But I'm just going to add in a little bit of extra dimension with that. I'm trying not to put it everywhere though, so that it's a little bit like I'm picking up some of the highlights a little bit more as well there. And I am. And we're just doing as much or as little as we feel we want to. And we're just building up that, the feel of it really. It's really lovely. I'm just going to bring some of these over, these little strands I can see, bring them over. But can you see we're creating so much more depth just by getting some directional movements in and just adding a few more tones. So it's not just green or light green or dark green. We've got, other kind of little things going on there. There we are. And then we've just got these little flowers, which are just beautiful, aren't they? So again, it's keeping a lightness with those. So thinking about what colour you want the stems. The stems are very light, and so in some places dark, aren't they? So again, it's deciding what colour do you want them. Do you want them pink? Do you want them yellow? Are you not sure? Just, have a little go with something. And then thinking about the colours of the flowers as well. I'm almost inclined to go in just with a few, just nice and lightly. You can always build up, that's the thing, you can always build up the colour of the stalk if it's not quite right. Just put a few in like that. Oops, that's quite a thick one. So if you get it, then it's too thick, just a bit of tissue and take it off. And you can always put a bit of glue back between it anyway. There we go. And it's just a lot of going for a colour that you think, oh yeah, I really like that as well. Compliments. And then I am going to go in with one that's a bit already orangey, just at the base of some of these. Or purple, you go for purple or something. Whatever you can see really is the way to go. And then just thinking about how you're going to dab these flowers on. So, what colour you're gonna have? And again, it's just going with some colour first, just deciding the colour. I've got a bit of a peachy colour, so I've mixed a bit of red and a bit of this yellow. Like that. I might put just a tiny bit more white in there. Like a bit more white, a bit more. Because what we can do, you see, so that's the colour I've ended up with there. And I'm just going in and just kind of, I'm dabbing it on because I just love that style, but you do what you think. Because I'm going to change these, so they're not going to stay like that. Just getting what we're doing is we're getting just some structure to them. I'm kind of just creating the shape of what I think the tops are like. I've got as many on as one or as few. So I'm just getting just a kind of a shape for the tops and everything. And then I'm going to pop in just a little bit of the shadow here. So I'm going to go in with a bit of bright pink, I think. Oh no, maybe not only a lot left on the sheet. So I'm just going to go add a bit more red to the pink that I've already mixed there. And I'm going to go in with that. Could go purple, do anything really. So to make sure I've got, looking at where the shadow is on the underside of these. And then just give it a little bit more shape with a highlight. So I'm going to go in with a really light highlight. I'm not sure if I'm going to go in with white, maybe a bit of a yellowy white kind of a tint, and then just create the shape of the tops where I think the light's hitting it. So we're building, we're building these little flowers up, aren't we, really? I think this brush is awful. It's really awful to use. I will not be using this one again, but it's fine. I'm just going to keep going with it. It's great for the bristly grass, but it's awful for getting the flowers on, but never mind. There we go. I'm still enjoying the process, so that's what matters. Yes, we're just building up these little shapes really, and it just gives us that 3D effect. You get all sorts of different shapes, and you can always go in with a really light highlight just in certain places. I could go in with a bit of white, just in, odd flower. Not quite as just gives it an extra little element. And then some of the stems, tiny bit of light in them. And that's it really. We just have a little look over your painting and just, see if you're happy with the overall composition. And if you are, then that's lovely. And also do definitely look at this from a distance, because when we have got texture and it can feel quite intense, but when we step away from it and have it at a distance, it makes, it really, really feels a lot softer. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's a really, really lovely topic. And enjoy creating your puffins. My final pause now.